Tonight we're going to talk about the Naadis in this webinar. I'll be telling you a little bit about my story, how I encountered the Naadis in brief, because I don't want to be too long with that, but just to explain just how life-changing it can be for those that have never encountered the Naadis before. I'll tell you a little bit about the Naadis themselves, what they are, just an overall view of what the Naadis are all about. And then I'd share some of the strange facts about the Naadis, because some of you have encountered it who are here tonight, and we'll share some of your stories as well, which would be fantastic if you can do that. But also, I mean, you've only gone to what's called the first chapter. There's so many deeper Naadis, and there's also miraculous Naadis. And the more you dig, the more you find. And it's like with everything in India, the more you dig, the more you find, and you think you've got to the bottom of it all. And next thing you know, there's another layer of mysterious things that seems to reach right back. So just before we start, I better tell you everybody what the Naadis are, in case anybody's here that hasn't heard of the Naadis. And of course, anybody watch this later on would need to know what they are. Centuries ago, we don't know how long ago, there were some ancient Rishis. They might go back what they call the Scepter Rishis, but they're not quite sure who wrote them originally, really. But they go back centuries. When I say centuries, they go back something, it's an oracle, which tells you the future, right? So these oracles were certain great enlightened beings saw the history of the world ahead, and they saw the history of every single individual, and they were asked, some of the Naadis put it in mythological story form and talk about Shiva being asked to by Parvati to tell the history of the future of his children, and he said, and I can't do it just for my children, I have to do it for the whole of humanity. So in his grace, he gave the history of the whole of humanity and the whole of every person that will live on this earth, and in detail. And these were channeled by the Rishis, they call them, the ancient Rishis. And the Rishis could write the story of each individual that would ever consult the oracle down onto these palm leaves. The leaves obviously couldn't contain every single person that's ever walked on earth, because that would be gigantic. But they've written the future of anybody that will, by their destiny and their good karma, be able to consult the oracle. And so they wrote it in a form of shorthand so that you can compress a great deal of information into a leaf. And these Rishis, they conquered time, really. They were able to sort of see into the future and see the details of everybody's life. And, I heard about this a long time ago. I heard about it at the time, in the early 1990s. I started getting interested in it. I thought, well, what an interesting thing that would be. I'd love to know what it is and be able to research it, perhaps. But there was no information then, because this was going back before the internet really had taken root. That was just started off as the Star Wars project with Reagan at that time, pretty much. But then I got on the internet very early on, and I made friends with somebody on the internet, an Indian friend of mine called Vivek, and I was asking him if he knew anything about them. And we were corresponding by, email and alt and things like that, and all the early parts of the internet. We got to know each other, became quite close friends as time developed, and we were both interested in it to see if we could find any information about it. And then out of the blue, I can't remember what it would have been, it's in 1998 or something no, later than that. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Out of the blue, when the internet had flourished a little bit more, he contacted me and said, Craig, I know you're interested in the Naadis, and I found some, and I'd actually like to see if I could actually, it's so fascinating what I've been told and what I've found and what I've discovered is just so mind-blowing. I'd like to actually introduce some of these to the West. and introduce people and friends to the Naadis. But, you know, you're a psychic, you know who's a fake and who's not. And he said, well, would you mind testing them for me? So that's how it all began. And we thought we could try to test it on Zoom. And of course I did that, and the rest is history, because I had an amazing reading. My first reading was with, I've written his name, Palasami Chinapa. He's on Facebook, actually. Very nice man. Had a golden earring in his, a diamond earring in his ear, actually, when he did it. And I know the Naadis asked you to wear diamonds. They told me I've got to wear diamonds. And they said, if you don't wear diamonds, get Jane diamonds so you can stand close to them. Because a lot goes on for precious stones and things like that, you know. So Palansami, it was amazing. It was the first reading I'd ever had, and I expect some of you have had that now too. And he went through the leaves and started reading the first line of every leaf. And the first lines I remember, first line he's read was, I remember it was kind of, you import precious metals for a living. I said, no. That's so. What you do is you read the first line of the leaf from your thumbprint. So you have to give them your thumbprint first. Right hand for a man, left hand for a woman. And so I sent my right hand thumbprint, and from it you see these little dots on it. Now some of you might have had different dots, 6 dots, 4 dots, 3 dots, 2 dots, and so forth. I had 6 dots, which was, he said, was extremely unusual. He'd never seen this before. It's very, very rare. And from that you can find the bundle, and then they read the first line of the bundle. Now, if you've had an Naadi, you'll know that it sounds very odd because it's all sort of sing-song when they read it, and it's kind of a messes your brain up when you listen to it. I don't know if you felt that yourselves, but it kind of it's sort of sung Tamil, or ancient Tamil actually. It's actually a Grantha script or Vatalutku script. I haven't got the quite words right, I think, with it, but it's like a shorthand. It's written like song in a way, so even someone that speaks Tamil wouldn't really fully understand it. It's got this sort of got to spend years and years studying this, but it means it can compress a lot of information into a very small space the way they do it. And of course you went through the leaves, and as some of you have already discovered, I'm sure, you get this leaf and it says something else and you know that makes no sense, and then it might say your first name begins with a consonant, or it might say your first name begins with a vowel, and you reject even the ones that have a single letter on them. Now, I had made sure when I first did this that I wasn't going to get any cheating with this, because by that time there was stuff on the internet, and I thought people could find me on the internet, you know. So the obvious thing is, well, they obviously look you up on the internet, do some trickery to give you a name and things, and then and then they, you know, they can just feed back what they find. So I hadn't given them a name. Because my close friend Vivek had also made sure that we were there to test them, so we didn't want to give me any information whatsoever. So I set up a separate Skype, I set up a separate email address for it. There was no way they could trace me back. And then of course they start going through the leaves, and then eventually we get to one where it said your ex-wife's name is Tina. Now that nothing was out there on that. You know, and that's the last thing I would have wanted on your ex-wife's name is the first reference. But I thought, pow, you know, what? How did you know that? And then once you've found the leaf, it all flows. You might get bits and pieces at first, and then suddenly it all flows. Your ex-wife's name was Tina. Your present wife's name is Jane. Your name is Craig. Your name is Craig Hamilton Parker. Your mother's name is Ethel, but she has another name. She calls herself Vicky. You know, so how did it know that? How did it know that my mother called herself Vicky, but her birth name was Ethel? They can never work that out. And loads of facts. So, I mean, my first one particularly was just one fact after another. And now, I didn't have any prior knowledge of the Naadi. I was one of the first Westerners, apart from a few odd people in the West that had found it, you know, used it. And me, it was just life-changing, and the things it tells you in the Naadi can be life-changing too, because it often comes into your life a very important point, a major turning point in your life. Something really, really major may have happened in your life unexpectedly at that time you consult the Naadi. There's a very special sense that destiny is involved, and I don't know whatever others have felt with this, but I always noticed when I looked in the sky, there was some strange astrological thing in the sky. For example, the moon had turned green one day. I thought, moon's gone green. I've never seen it like that. The cloud patterns were such that it just went a greeny colour. And other things like that. The moon always seemed to do something very, very special. And it felt as if you were in some magical sort of moment in your life that is just unexplainable, and there's a sense of something changing in your destiny that has happened, and you think it's like it's like taking one of those pills in the Matrix. Suddenly something has popped, something is suddenly very, very different, and it makes you deeply think on a very deep level of the nature of who I am and who wrote these things. In my own case, I felt, I think I've written this myself somehow, and it make you, the whole nature of what is reality comes up with it. Well, in that first Naadi, I wrote it up in my book, Messages from the Universe and things. But he said, you are a Rishi. You are a Rishi. You're here to teach people. You are to do this and all these incredible things that I was to do. And I was to reach out to the world and be talking to hundreds of thousands of people, which, of course, at that point, no YouTube channel. I never thought of it would be like that. How does one ever talk out to hundreds of thousands of people? And it had also come, like I said, at a point in one's life, which is a turning point. At that point, my business I had at the time, which was an online psychic business again, it completely collapsed because Google had taken me off Google permanently. It had hit me with one of the algorithm things. So overnight, we're about to go on holiday. Overnight, my takings went from good living to zero. Overnight. So suddenly all my income was taken away. It was, where am I going to go? Can't use the internet. How the hell am I going to make a living without the internet? And so it came at a major point in one's life and makes you rethink. And when you've had a Naadi, you've probably found that it makes you rethink things very, 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 very deeply, And also in my own case, I still was in this idea of testing it. So we did the same thing again. Me and Vivek then decided to test another Naadi reader to see if what same information would come up. So we got quite soon after, I went and found another Naadi. This one was called the Shashuma Naadi. And it was done in a different way. It was a whole different way of done it. It was all done. This one was done like a dialogue between Shiva and Shakti. It was just a dialogue. So the questions would be asked about me to Shiva, and Shiva would give a reply. It was a long, convoluted type of Naadi. It was only they didn't have Zoom, so they could only record it. And it was fascinating, all in a different tone, but the same type of information. Not only my mother's name and all the rest of it came through in a slightly different way, slightly different facts and new facts that the other one hadn't come up with. Also, it took a slightly different angle. One would take an angle from me working on the media, because I'd done quite a lot of media work. Another one came from an angle from me working with books. And another one revealed other things about my past and my childhood and things like that, and my father's past and things like that. All sorts of information was coming into these different Naadis. But it was all exactly the same, and it said the same name. So I thought, well, we're going to test it a third time. And we tested it a third time, and again, the same sort of information. It even told me things like, you're testing the Naadi. And it even told me things such as, this Naadi will be delayed getting to you. And it was delayed. We lost it in the internet. It got into my spam folder. I couldn't find it. They couldn't send it properly. The file was corrupt and we had to relook at it. And it even told us that the file would be corrupt. And even not knowing what a file was. Because it speaks in the time of centuries ago. For example, if the Naadi describes like a train, it will describe a long carriage with many wheels. If it describes a aeroplane, it will describe a machine that flies in the sky. It's talking like somebody from those centuries ago, talking about these things. How would they see it? How would they? And what is a computer? They describe it as a machine of sound and light. That's a computer. We know that now because we can check it out, because it corresponds in other Naadis, So they're kind of describing these things, and these things go back centuries, because in my own Naadis, and also watching other people's Naadis being read, there's all sorts of strange stuff comes up, because I often question, when was this Naadi created? And it's often mentioned about Kamari Kandam, right? Now that is supposed to be the ancient, like, Atlantis type landscape that sunk off the coasts of India. There was supposed to have been tens of thousands of years ago a great island in the Indian Ocean that even stretched as far as Madagascar to Australia to India. And geologically, it seems to be pretty much impossible to do that. But apparently, if you go back almost to dinosaur times, we've got this other landscape that was there. So when were these people here? You know, if they can mention Kamari Kandam. And then it talks about this Naadi for you was written in Dwapara Yuga. Well, Dwapara Yuga was before the time of Krishna. So that's going back vast amounts of time as well. So these Naadis were written, and of course they've been carbon dated. I knew someone that had them carbon dated, and they were 500 years old. Apparently, he had them carbon dated in Germany. I can't confirm that but this is what I heard. They're 500 years old max, but they say that they rewrite them and rewrite them and rewrite them. So they copy them. So they've been passed down. So I think it's been passed down like as a tradition written down. Before that, I think it was more like an energetic type of passing down through history, because we're working on a different level to us. You know, we obviously use the material world to communicate and connect, like with computers and writing and things like that. But could there have been a time when we could have energetically laid these things down, you know, and that people perhaps had this Rishis divine knowledge could have been passed down through some Akashic record type of thing. You know, not only do we have an Akashic record, but we can link into it, you see. So obviously, from my point of view, it was an absolute mind blower. I then went on and I met another man called Kim Pei Sol. He died recently last year, unfortunately, but he became a very good friend of mine as well. He spent 20 odd, 30 years or so, I don't know quite how long, but most of his life investigating the Naadis, and had a vast knowledge of the Naadis. And he introduced me to what is called the Brighu Samhita, which is another Naadi system in the north of India. They got their libraries for it up there in Hoshiarpur. Okay, if I pronounced it right, Sheila or someone might correct me later. But it's up and this one, if you can find it, instead of finding it through your thumbprint, it looks. You just look in the index, and your name will already be written in there. So as an index, it then tells you, and your horoscope has already been written for your time and date of birth, and it does it in a slightly different way. I think it uses Sanskrit rather than ancient Tamil. So this one by Brighu, who was the first astrologer, the greatest and the first of the astrologers, that started off the whole idea of astrology, according to Indian traditions. He produced this incredible. These incredible ones where it's got your name, so it's your appointment is here, sir, you know. And they when you go to see this one, I haven't been to see it, but I had it consulted via a proxy person through Kim. They would say, they say, what's your date of birth? And they look it up and they say, your name is so and so. Okay, we got it here for you. You know, an appointment book from thousands of years ago, written in advance with your Brighu Samhita, which has a different flavour and a different style to it. Again, it's a little bit more astrological, and it gives you a lot more sort of detail about the astrology of things, a bit closer on timing. It goes a lot more detail in your past as well, of what happened or what times in your life, because it's more of an astrological type of text. But again, amazing. And again, with all of these, they have remedies in them. That is, remedies that we can use to get rid of any negativity that comes into our life. Because the other thing that we found, one more sort of Naadi I'll tell you about as well, which is the Jiva Naadi. Now, this is the miraculous one, or the most miraculous one of all. Kim had access to a Jiva Naadi, and the Jiva Naadi is a blank leaf. It's a blank. The leaves are like you've seen them if you've had a Naadi, but they're like a ruler or something. They look like, you know, a cheap form of wood, because but basically it's all written on there. But the Jiva Naadi is a blank one. And on the blank leaf, the words will just appear. They'll just appear on the leaf. And so, and it knows your question before you go there. So it comes up with your question that you've got in mind. You don't even have to say anything. You don't have to ask anything. Like when you do the Naadi, all you have to do is say yes and no. You don't give them any more information. And it comes up, and it comes up in letters of light on the Naadi. And it will tell you the answer. And in my case, this is the one that I consulted to ask about my grandchild who had just been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And it told me, your grandson has type 1 diabetes. He will die at the age of 5 years old. But there is a remedy. And that remedy is that you will meet a holy man who can take the diabetes from him and not cure him, but it said it can take the life threat from him so he can live a full life. And Kim sent me the email about this and said, sorry, Craig, it's a bit of a tough one, you know. And the funny thing was, as it happened, I had my mobile phone in my hand as I was looking at the, on the screen. And I had a picture on there of Sharavana Baba, right, which was a guru that I'd come across. And I wrote a book about him. There he is, Sharavana Baba. And I thought, perhaps that's the holy man. And I got in touch, and what did Sharavana said? I've been waiting for you. The Naadis told you to come to me. And Damien's thriving. He's doing well. He's got type 1 diabetes. He's got a pump, which makes a massive difference. It was life and death all the time. Everybody trying to rush him to, we were rushing him to hospital nearly every other day. And now he's a happy young child, struggling because he's also got autism, but he struggles, but he's safe, he's well, he's going to have a full life. So the Naadis saved my grandson's life, I feel, because I don't think he would have made it past 5 years old, frankly. It was, anybody's ever come across type 1 diabetes in a young child, and particularly with autism, you don't know whether their communications was difficult when they're younger, will know how hard a task that is. So I feel I owe a life there, just as Dr. Q did, because eventually I came across Dr. Q, and these were the Naadis that I felt with Dr. Q. He was given a genuine Naadi. I came across some as well that were fakes, and that's the problem. As Kim said to me, I said, how many Naadis do you think are fake, Kim? He said, I think 1 in 1,000 is real, right? 1 in 1,000. And it's the same with the Brighu Samhita, for example. I've read of people that you go to you go to the places where the libraries are, and there's people pushing out Naadis all the time, grabbing you on the airport to give you a Naadi. That's all over some parts of India. Tamil Nadu, where the main Naadis come from. Also, people will grab you with your Naadis and things like that. And of course, people get sucked into it. And what they're doing sometimes, they might have a real Naadi, but it's someone else's, and they just read that to people. They listen in. They do all sorts of tricks, all the tricks of the trade, and will rip you off big time. So for years, I wouldn't let anybody know about the Naadis except people I personally introduced to my Naadi reader friend, Mr. Prakash, which is the one you saw on Mystic Journey to India if you watch my movie. And I still sometimes introduce people to him if they need sort of special insights. But I wouldn't introduce anybody, because the problem is there was just so many dangerous rip-offs out there, and they would scare the living daylights out of people by putting extras into the Naadi, extra car crashes, extra illnesses and things like that. So you've got to have these extra remedies, so the remedies start to go into thousands and thousands of pounds. So just like you see, I know psychics that sell candles to get rid of curses and things. There's all sorts of nonsense out there. But the Naadis were particularly corrupt. And when a true Naadi becomes corrupt, woe betide the Naadi reader, because there's been cases where I know of from the people I've spoken about within the Naadi circles, for example, where Naadi readers have actually spontaneously combusted when they've cheated. And that sounds like fairy tales, but these are substantiated stories. And I even had one case of a Naadi reader that was using my name to push forward Naadis which were fake. I actually had to get the police to stop him in India. So I had to sort of connect with friends in India to get him stopped and threatened. They put him in a prison and that shut him up, and he stopped. But, relentless. So you've got to be so, so careful, because they're now, of course, it's all over the internet. There's others doing it as well, and at the moment, because Dr. Q's good, he's a lovely man, but we even got to be careful there because there's always the danger something could creep in from some of the other Naadis. So we're keeping a careful check on it all the time, and it can be very, very concerning when you hear of this. And there are different types of Naadis as well. I'm going to conclude this in a minute. We'll have a chat with you about and give you some questions because I'm sure you'd love to ask me things. But there's different levels of Naadis. The top Naadis, the highest Naadis, which use the Maha mantras, they are all connected with things like the Siddhas and saints wrote those. So there's the top Naadis were written by the Siddhas and saints. There's middling Naadis, which are kind of written by less advanced saints. And there's the low Naadis, which were written by evil spirits. And, I mean, we probably don't believe those sort of things. But when you start going into it and you start thinking, actually, some of this stuff is real, because some very heavy stuff can go on with some of those. So that's where, again, as long as the seeker, the way to get the right Naadi, the seeker has to have right intent. It's a combination of the right intent of the seeker plus the particular auspiciousness of that seeker's karma at that time. You would come across the Naadi because you've done something in a previous life that was particularly good that will help open that door and help to break your normal karmic cycle. You've done something really good. So do something really good in this life, so the next cycle you can break it again if you're born here again onto Earth. So it's a fascinating sort of thing. The Naadi that Dr. Q has been putting forward, some of you we can talk about some of your Naadis in a moment, but it's the Agastya Naadi. Now, Agastya was the great saint as the highest of the Rishis in terms of the Naadis. It was him that he is supposed to have designed and written the original Tamil language, for example. He is said to be the teacher, the great saint who taught Yogananda's teacher's teacher's teacher, Guru Avatar Maha Avatar Babaji, who's in Yogananda's book Autobiography of a Yogi, the one that materializes cities and things like that. If you've ever read it, must read Autobiography of a Yogi. If you haven't read it, I insist, I won't let you go if you don't read it. It's a beautiful book. But his teacher Maha Babaji was taught by Agastya. So we're already, and Babaji is supposed to live 2,000 years, so Agastya would be back further still, according to those legends. So they're legendary type of figures in many ways, but these were the Rishis that I would say they conquered time. And when these Naadis were written down, they were all put onto these palm leaves and they're kept in libraries. And they've got libraries at Visheswara, Coil, Kanchimpura, I've got them written down, and of course Chennai, which was the old Madras. The ones that those of you that have come through on the Agastya Naadi are based in Chennai, and they've got a whole. And what Dr. Q does, Dr. Q is going to come on tonight, but we'll do another one another time and bring Dr. Q on as well. Those Naadis, they've got the profits, so a large part of the profits from it are going to help fund a orphanage. So good comes out of it, And I know Dr. Q, his life, as he said, his life was saved through it as well because he's cured of cancer. So these remedies are really, really important. In the ones that you guys probably have had, of those of you that had a Naadi with me, you would have had mantras mainly to chant, I expect. In my case, particularly the first one, I had a whole list of remedies, which meant, how the hell do I do these? I didn't know where to begin. It said go to a such and such temple and do this mantra, go to this place and do that mantra, but buy clothes for so many poor people, feed a group of people food equal to your body weight and things like this, and all sorts of bizarre and strange things to do as well. In the end, I thought the only way I'm going to be able to do this is actually go to India. I tried to do many of them in the temples in London, in Wembley and places, and got through most of it. But a lot of them would say, well, we can't do that. It takes 5 priests to do that and things like this, And so my Naadis were very, very complicated because I went deeper and deeper into them. And I went into the more advanced yardis, as it were, because the Naadis, I think their objective is to awaken us, to enlighten us. An enlightened person don't read the Naadis. Ramana Maharishi, for example, he said that he wouldn't have his Nadi read. He wouldn't read it. There was a Nadi written for him that said that he had to do this and do that, and his Nadi didn't come true whatsoever, because he said, "No, I'm beyond that. I am the holy man. I am awakened already." He lived in what was his name? Tirumalani, where Arachana is, and he lived on the holy mountain there all his life and was completely shot away in God consciousness through his whole life. And his Nadi, didn't correspond to anything that happened in his life, because he said, "I'm not doing it. I'm not doing the remedies or any of it." And the other sort of person, I think, that the Nadi would also not be relevant to is somebody who thinks they're enlightened and isn't, because it can't help you, because you're stuck in your arrogance and you're stuck in your misconception of enlightenment. And some of the other Nadis, there was other Nadis for Sai Baba and people like that, because Sai Baba played a very big role in my lead into the Nadis, because before I consulted my first Nadi, I had a dream about Sai Baba. I dreamed I was in Sathya Sai Baba, dreamed I was in Varanasi, which is where they burn the dead on the river. I've been there in the past. And in the dream I said, Sai Baba comes up to me and I said, he said, I said to him, "Why am I here?" And he says, "Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?" Which was the Maharishi type of message. And without going into too much detail of the dream, because I'm going off on too much of a direction, I felt he prompted me into it in a super vivid dream to do the Nadi. And I've had lots of visitations in dreams from Sai Baba, and and I believe sometimes the Rishis themselves have come into my dreams, and the Naadis themselves gave me the name Paramaswaran. We said, "Your name you must call yourself Paramaswaran." Now I still call myself Craig, but I put it as a subtext because that is my spiritual name, and it said that is the name that you have to carry forward as a Rishi. So it all sounds a bit big and big-headed, that type of thing, but we are all Rishis in a way. We are all people on the path to spiritual awakening. All of us that want to help others with the spiritual awakening are on that same path, aren't we, really? And I think that the Nadis, to me, is like a guru. It teaches us. And its objective is not like a psychic reading where people want to come along and be told everything in the world's going to be great and fine. They're there to tell you the bad stuff. They're there to tell you how long you got to live. They're there to tell you what obstacles you've got on the road and how to get round them. And when you start consulting multiple Nadis like I did, things change. You see, and just for few more little bit first before I start asking you questions about things, because I think it would be interesting to share our thoughts. But sometimes even the words on the leaf change. It's like you've entered another dimension or a multiverse, because suddenly the leaf's gone blank. Suddenly words are missing, and then you consult a second Nadi and it might say you will die. They said to me, "You die at the age of 75." And then later on, the Nadi starts saying, "No, you're going to die now. You've done all those remedies. You're going to die at 98 and so on." And I think, and I don't even know. I don't even know whether Nadi could tell you the time of death, because my free will might change that completely anyway. But the fact is, what the Nadis are given is a current trajectory. It's giving you a blueprint. Although it's miraculous in that it tells you all that's happened, and the things that immediately it tells you happen immediately, almost the next day. Sometimes things happen that it's said, but the longer term things are we still have this remarkable and strange and perhaps illusionary thing called free will, which means that somehow we're changing that trajectory a little bit. The blueprint is altering slightly, right? And so we are really in the matrix of this one, guys. And I think it's fascinating when you start looking into this. And I haven't even touched on some of the other miraculous stuff like the pothies, for example, which are gold and silver Nadis that are put into fires. And when you put them into fires, they again speak to you, but they don't put it in Tamil. they put it in your own language, you know. So there's all these remarkable things. So I think I'm going to ease off for a bit, and because I'd like this to be interactive, because you've all joined me so that hopefully you can ask the questions you'd like to ask, and if you'd like, you can also share some of the things that have been in your Naadis. I have discovered a secret oracle in India that has on it the name of my mother, the name of my father, my name, my brother's name, my wife's name, all the details about my life from the moment I was born and right into the future. And it even tells me the time of my death. And to access this oracle, all it needed was my thumbprint. I'm here in India on my first mystic journey. In the UK and USA, Jane and I are known as the most psychic couple on the planet.
I really enjoyed the reading with Craig because he hit some real accuracies about my father and our relationship.
I've been a psychic medium for years. We have both had a fruitful life and seen many mystical things, but my trip to India has certainly opened even my eyes. As psychics, we have both been invited to do many TV shows about the paranormal, but what I'm about to experience in India is absolutely astonishing. So astonishing that even my wife Jane couldn't get her head round it. I have come to India to visit its temples and to do its rituals and change my fate. Everything the oracle has told me about my life so far is astonishing. What it has to say is so mind-boggling that I feel compelled to make this crazy journey in order to undertake the magical remedies it prescribes. I want to find out if these Naadi leaves are a myth or the real thing. And if so, maybe I can uncover their secrets and discover if they can help other people too. On this journey, I meet a holy man who sleeps in a raging fire and is claimed will live for hundreds of years. This Siddhi yogi never eats, lives in a cave, and few people ever get to meet him. I am guided by two astrologers that help me clear my karma and explain to me the rituals that I must undertake. I am stunned by the beautiful landscapes and overwhelmed by the magical temples and mystic places. I love the people and the animals of India. I am visiting places where few Westerners ever go. It's a cultural shock and spiritual awakening. I feel an overwhelming inner transformation. Will I find the guiding light I need? My search takes me thousands of miles across India's breathtaking landscapes, and I see magnificent things. To clear my karma, the oracle has told me to do charitable work, undertake magical rituals and remedies. This is the adventure of a lifetime. This is my mystic journey. I don't know quite how to throw you into this, but let's see. Is anybody willing to have a chat about one of their Naadis? Or okay, I'm going to come into Chilan Chan. It says on the screen.
Yes, yes. Hi, Greg. You actually did email reading for me too. So I think this will be an interesting questions because it's like, like how does it, like psychic prediction and together with like Nadi, right? And it's very interesting because like we had a reading back then, and you told me like there's like a business partners, and then the energy at the time feels good, and I became partner with him. And when I got my Naadi read leave, and it's very interesting what they told me. They were like, don't do business in these few years because you might bump into people who will try to basically do bad stuff to you, treat you out of money. And then I started doing the remedy. And like, I think supposedly it feels like it might be a longer term things I won't know until 2 or 3 years later. And as I was doing the remedy, like the pujas, like praying,
Hmm.
I noticed all things about this person. And then I was like, wait, I'm not sure I wanted to go further into business with him. And so, I started setting boundary. And then like this person revealed to me, to himself, that like to me eventually, like he's like, oh my God, he's like a converted narcissist, and he's like, trying to do harm and things. So I guess like my question is like, on like both like the timing, that's also like the puja change things, because it felt like, and I like to confirm with you, is like it felt like a speed up for me in terms of like, instead of like suffering this like much later, it come up earlier, and so I know earlier, and then I can move on to a better path.
Yes, I think that's quite good. True, actually. What I think, it speeds up the good coming to you and slows down the bad, because, for example, if something negative comes up, say there's one example I've quoted before to people. I this is one I did with Mr. Prakash, for example. So I was listening to the whole Naadi with them, and one of the things it said in there, they'd have a car crash, and I thought, oh dear, we've got to do the remedies for that. Did the remedies for the car crash, and it said you'd have a car crash and a bad injury, and you'd be put in hospital, right? So, like I say, that brings up the bad stuff, and she did all the remedies, and everything went fine. And then she was telling her friend while they were in the car about this terrible car accident that the Naadi predicted. And woe betide, what happens? A car hits them, and only left a scratch on the car, but it actually hit them at the time that the Naadi had predicted when they checked it out. So the karma was still there, but it was negligible. Instead of being put in hospital, it was just a scratch. So it was like it had to happen, but it didn't happen bad. So that's, we negate the negative. And I think also what happens is we sometimes speed up the positive too. We speed up the positive that comes into our life, and get us onto. And the objective of the Nadis isn't to make us rich and famous, or make us poor, or make us, whatever, happily married or anything. It's about to enlighten us ultimately. It's to help us to wake up. It's about all that, So I think there's a mixture of. I think that's what you've got it right. It will give you a feeling of speeding up, and when you've. And I've noticed it in my own, and I think others have said this too. And also another fellow that's worth reading if you ever see it. Another book I would suggest is not one of mine. Naadi Predictions, it's called, and it's by Wing Commander. How do you pronounce his name? Shashikant Oak. Wing Commander Oak. You'd find it if you want to search. He's also got a He's also got a Facebook group for Naadi lovers. I've got all the addresses in the back of that for where you can find the Naadis in India if you want to find them. He's got all of them listed in the back of the book there, which is. But in the stories in there, a lot of the stories which are people's Naadis that they've had have these strange synchronicities. That when you have it done, weird coincidences happen. And it just so happens that this happens and that happens, and it all drops into place. Particularly the early predictions coming quick. But I think the later predictions, we've got to take them a little bit with a piece of salt sometimes, because it's given us a general feel of what we're heading for, and that's what our potential is based upon our current position. But we can't just sit down, put our feet up, and say, "Oh, right, I'm going to be this or do that," and so it's just going to happen. It won't. We have to play out the play. We have to act it out, and that's what it's doing. We're learning that we are just players on the stage of life, but we've still got to play our part and play the game. So yeah,
sorry. So does it mean that it changed my karma,
yes,
speed up, but it also changed the other person's too, in a sense?
yes, it will affect other people's as well around you. And when you have your family do it as well, I think it affects all of us. Like I've had, other people in my family have done it, and even people I've come into conflict in my family with. It's interesting how the Naadis are going to sort of work things out and things. I mean, it is interesting. It's all ultimately illusionary, but it's an interesting game that's unfolding. So I'm going to take a few more questions because I like to get as many in as I can from people. So if you mute yourself, well done. I can see little hands up. I'll go wrong on one at a time. Sheila, I'll let you in next because I know you anyway. But of course, I know a lot of you here actually. But Sheila, unmute.
Yes, thank you, Craig. First of all, I just want to say that I'm appreciative of the Naadi that I had and the fact that you were able to test through it in the age of fake news, fake videos, all sorts of Naadi experiences. What I liked particularly about my experience was, first of all, before I could even ask, they said everything would be recorded and we will give you a copy of that. And I thought that was fabulous to be so open and to not only give a recording, which, by the way, I used Dr. M's services for everybody, just so that you know. They gave me a recording. They gave me a transcript, which I've got here as well, which I printed out the other day. And so, when somebody is willing to put that on the line and say that, they cannot retract anything that they've said. So I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, also I would say that that Dr. Q service, which I recommend people to, you see now through me, he also has got it geared up for Westerners so you can understand it. I know you're Indian, Sheila, but I mean, a lot of people, it's a real minefield going into the Indian ways because like the first ones I did, it was like I could hardly understand. Well, the first one was he spoke good English. Other ones, it was like Hindi English, I couldn't understand it. I could kind of get the gist of it, and which is frustrating because you don't know have I read that right, I wrote about that in one of my books. I was like, it was just, is he talking about lawnmowers?
Yeah.
I mean, whole bits were missed. And I recorded and had to give it to an Indian person. Can you understand it and type it out for me? On Fiverr, I got someone to.
And being an Indian, it's not in your favor because this gentleman who was the astrologer, if you like, the Naadi reader, was South Indian. And those of you who know about India or are of Indian origin, like myself, the language is completely different. You can hear from my voice, I've been raised here, so I can't even speak Hindi. And this chap was trying to speak to me in Hindi because I happened to have the reading in India while I was on holiday. And I said, I don't speak Hindi. But coming back to the point, there was another advantage for me in that my father, when he was a little younger, was an extremely good astrologer. So I had an idea of things, not Naadi, of course. And so when he started making comments and predictions, not just about me, but about my son as well, I was quite amazed. He knew his stuff. And if I can just briefly say what happened in my reading, one of the things that came up was they said to me, he said immediately, your son is studying and it's medical. And my son is doing a BSc in biomedical. That is the title of the degree that he's doing. And I said, yes. And I was about to say, but, and then he said, MBBS. And this is very strange because that's exactly what my son wants to do. He wants to do an MBBS. He wants to do graduate entry. And he actually did get a chance before the BSc, but we couldn't afford it. so he went this way. So he could have said computer science, he could have said economics. My son was very good at computer science. We all thought he was, it was quite a surprise for us, you know, we didn't expect that he would go for that. And then later on, he said that one of the lives I had had in a previous life, which is what I had to, if you like, atone for in this life, was also related to biomedical. And he actually said that I had produced some kind of medicines which were harmful to people in a previous life. And when I realized what I did, I sought kind of like a Naadi at that time to make amends, to start doing the remedies and the pujas. But I died in that life before I could complete those pujas. And there was, to me, there was kind of like a correlation that how come, you know, my son was studying this. This was something he said was in the previous life. I thought that was very bizarre, that it was almost like I have to go through this, but my son is also making amends for me. That was something which was quite pertinent to me. There were many other things. I actually felt I had a very positive reading, maybe because I've crossed 50, crossed 55, so I haven't got many things left to do. But he seemed to say I would have a very long life. And he said that, you know, my life would get more spiritual. And they break it down into kind of year periods. So it might be like 61 to 67, you know, 73 to. And one of the things he said was he saw me getting another guru in the future and that my life would become much more spiritual. I actually found my reading really fabulous. I found it gave me a lot of peace in my life for other things that it said. I was absolutely delighted with the reading. Any worries I had just went out the window.
It's a funny thing actually, because you get a certain sort of acceptance when it happens too, don't you? I mean, you get a feeling like yeah, they tell you when you're going to die, for example, and you think, well, that's all right. You know, that seems all right. You kind
No,
of
I actually started my reading by telling them I don't want to know when I die.
yeah.
I don't want, that's the only thing. I said, I don't want to know when anybody dies in my family, on my in-laws' side, because I thought that would scare me every night. I'd be thinking, oh my God, you know, I've only got 10 years left, only got 20 years
Yeah,
left.
I mean, and some of the Naadis, they have 12 chapters or more, or 8 or 12, depending on what
Yeah.
they are. And there's one chapter which I didn't actually access, the only one they didn't give me, which was the chapter of incurable illnesses.
Okay.
So you think, oh, what was in there, you know? But of course, like you say, you don't have to
No.
have that. You can ask not to have that.
And they
Uh,
respected that, Craig. They
yeah,
respected the fact that from the start, I put it in writing, typical Capricorn that I am, you know, I put everything in writing in the email. I also want to say that I felt that at all times I was respected during this reading. There was a translator, a moderator, if I needed a break. And trust me, it took 2 hours and maybe just a 15, 20-minute break in between.
it's not
It's
quick.
not,
No, well, it depends, and
it's
it also
not,
depends how long
yeah,
it takes to find your leaf, of course, because you
yeah,
might get it on the first bundle, you might go through 4 bundles, and then it might not be in that, and you must have to go to the next bundle along, because it's
yeah,
identified, of course, by your thumbprint, number of dots you've got on your thumb, which they also
yeah.
tell you about that, of course, as well. So they give you some insight into the meaning of that. I'm going to move on and let's let a couple others in now, Sheila, but we can come back to everybody again if you've got anything else you want to share with us, because it's great. I'm going to come to Suki now. Suki, can you unmute? Yeah.
Yeah,
Hi there, Suki.
for some reason, so I was ready for you. Um, so nice to see you all again. I love these get-togethers as well. So I personally feel that I've been searching for the Nadi all my life. I it was just like I've done psychic readings, I've done astrology charts, I've done past life regression, and all of them have been amazing, and I believe in absolutely all of them. But the Nadi, going back to what Sheila said, it just gave me that inner peace, the assurance. It gave me the certainty that I already knew. I'm a big believer of Nadis anyway, since I heard of it the very first time via yourself and Dr. Q. So I personally have had 2 Naadis done in a space of 2 years.
Were they both done by Dr. Q, or were they
Yeah.
done different ones?
Both by Dr. Q.
Okay, yep.
Not by him personally, guys.
No.
It was both times were completely different readers and completely different translators. Same moderator, but readings were completely different. And the beauty of it, the first one I had done in 2022. I'd done the pujas. I was amazed by it. Everything was spot on. And it's so, like, it brings you so much peace. I'm using that word again. And then once I've done all my pujas, I had this urge to start again, to do another reading. Something was in me. I'm like, right, I need another reading. I need more. I need to see what I've changed with my pujas. And so I didn't tell them this the second time round, but the Naadi knew I'd done a first reading, not with them, not with a different reader. Absolutely, it was brand new. This time, the Naadi found me ever so quickly. My leaf was found slightly quicker, and my husband actually did a Naadi, both the Naadis at the same time as well. So our Naadi readings were like 1 day apart, and we had compared both our notes and how can my life trajectory be the same as his. Luckily, that we're going to stay together, so that's a good thing as well. Because
helpful.
your Naadis, but what if they say that you and Charles aren't going to end up together? I said, I never thought of that. Thanks for putting that in my head. I said, because I just knew it's going to work out. You do have this inner compass. You do have that feeling that it's going to be absolutely fine, but you need that reassurance because we always double guess ourselves. But the funny thing is, the second time I did my Naadi, I'd actually changed my life trajectory. I don't know how to say it, but I should have printed it out. But I'd elevated myself without sounding too egotistical. That it was like you have changed the dots on your finger because there's 3 dots, 4 dots, and so forth.
Yeah.
Yours is 6, which is I've never heard of. It's amazing. But they said you have changed just your future, or you've cleared a lot of the negative energies by doing the first Naadi. Now I've just completed the second lot of pujas 2 weeks ago, funny enough, and now we're talking.
So your pujas were all mantras, were they, or did you have it? Someone's put in the chat there. Interesting to know what pujas people had. Did you have anything unusual?
No, I had to start with all on certain
all mantras. You didn't actually visit anywhere, or had to do a temple visits, or
no. I had
people.
fire clearing ceremony done in India this time, and so did my husband. And I actually had to be committed to doing. I mean, it's taken me about 7 months to complete everything.
Yeah, some of them. I had one lot of Naadis I had to do, which was mantras. It took me 3 years daily.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a tough one. But it was 100,000 mantras, but there was a long mantra, so it took a long time to do. Yeah, okay, I'm going to move on just so we can all come back to each other in a minute. I just want to get everybody a chance to sort of, who wants to speak, have a quick word. I'm going to come into Henry next, actually, Henry, because I saw you put your hand up a little while back.
Yes.
Hi there, Henry.
Yeah, hi. You hear me?
Yep.
Okay. When you had your podcast with Alex Ferrari, Next Level 4, and you mentioned Naadi, he said I made a complete podcast with somebody about Naadis. And I found out it was the Iranian dedicated his life.
Yeah, that's Dr. Q. Q,
yeah.
Yes, yeah. He was
so
Iranian.
I sent them emails, so I'm on the waiting list. So these are the right people to go to, yes?
Yes, they are. But if people go through me, they jump the queue because I have an arrangement with them that people that come through me can go ahead.
You do arrange with them,
yeah? Yeah.
Okay, but one-sided question. I don't know if you can talk about raising Kundalini and how to cleanse the karma. Do you have advice on these things? It's
but
probably
the Naadi
off topic.
you see what the Nadi is, off topic, but not in a way, because if you
Yeah.
think what the Nadi is, a Nadi in the Kundalini, we got the three main channels that run up, well, four actually, because there's one within the Sushumna, but we have the Ida, Pingala, the Sushumna in the middle, and in the center of the Sushumna, the Brahma, I think it's called the Brahma Nadi. Those are the Nadis. They're the energy lines that take this energy up the spine to the crown of the head. And that is all the nadis are all based on this idea of movement of energy, and a nadi can have multiple meanings. It can mean to seek, but it can also mean the energy levels of the astral body itself. So the nadis are helping us to release that energy, perhaps unconsciously, and I think because as a person, because people have a misconception with the idea of the kundalini, that it's like hits the spine, pow, and it's like some sort of hammer at a circus where it shoots up through the spine. That only happens in the forceful release of kundalini. The kundalini is a gradually opening thing in all our lives that gradually flowers as the chakras begin to open. These things were actually spoken about in the nadis to me at one point, and I've seen other people's nadis where it specifically talks about the inner body work and how to continue with it. And I think it's fascinating because within those nadis sometimes there's stuff there for people that have become sadhus, as well as stuff there for people who are there to ask about much more mundane worldly things. So it's all in there, and the objective of the Nadi is to find the karmic blocks that are in the way to help with the awakening process. So yeah, it is in there. It is in there. Okay, I'm going to move on to another one, if I may now. Who hadn't? There was another one I saw somebody with hand up. Let's have a quick look. You can put the little hand up on the. Where were you? Gone. You've gone.
I think
There we go.
Milan, you hand
Milan.
up?
Yeah, it says Milan on the screen.
Hi, Craig. Yeah, great to
Hi
see
there.
you again. I first so I haven't had my Naadis done, but I first discovered it through your movie, Mystic Journey to India. I was like absolutely blown away by it. And I guess my question is, when do you know is the divine timing to start? And there's like several types of Naadi, like how I don't even know where to start, basically.
Okay, so you can't. I don't think you can know when the time is right for it, frankly, because it's like it hits you kind of out the blue. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, I find the Nadi finds you rather than you find it. I've found in my life, because I was interested in the Nadi, and then I kind of must have sent something out into the universe, but my time wasn't quite right. I needed that point. For me, I think it was a certain turning point in life where I was kind of, I suppose, a bit more vulnerable in a way, because everything I'd had in my life at that point was absolutely turned upside down all of a sudden, almost overnight. So it was a real shock. I thought everything's easy now. This is how I live my life. And I thought everything was working. You're on the path, they're running along. And suddenly, bam, something changed. Now, it doesn't mean that that's necessarily going to happen to you in your life. But I think when it does, when the Nadi comes into your life, I think it tends perhaps for the highly spiritually motivated people. I think it comes at what the Buddhists call a bardo moment, a moment of change, a moment of turnover from one, a sort of something's clicked. So you can't kind of think, oh, I'm ready. No, I'm not. I mean, the very fact that you've even heard about the Nadi is unusual, really. I mean, they say that even to have heard about the Nadi is a blessing in India, because it's only just opened up here in the West. I mean, I never heard of it 20 years ago, would we? I read it was in some of the Sai Baba books, because there used to be Phyllis Crystal, who was one of the, I think she consulted one of the Naadi oracles near Puttapati. I think there was one. It might have been her. I think it was Phyllis Crystal, one of them. And so there were sort of odd bits and pieces and references to it. And I know that one of the Yogananda people, I've forgotten his name now, the one that broke away from the movement and set up his own thing, he had also consulted the Naadi. And there's references here and there. But most of us never heard of it. So, excuse me, I think it's an absolute blessing that it's coming to us at the moment. And I think it's coming to us for a specific reason. because these rishis were not just concerned about individuals, they were concerned about the whole world, I feel. And I believe it's part of the divine knowledge that's coming to the world again. It's an awakening process, I believe, that we have personal predictions in there. We have things that we can happen, but I think it's a global phenomenon now. I think it's happening because a lot of us have to wake up, and there's things are changing in the world really radically, and we're in a state where the world itself, I think, is at one of those turning points. A bit like I say, in your life, these things step in at a point when it's important to you. And I think the world at large too, is very important, that we're all awakening. So I think when it comes into your life, it will come. And you're on the waiting list. I hope you're on my waiting list on the ones I put through. But a lot of them have you been waiting a long time?
I think I did put my name down. Is it through the message on your website?
Yeah, if you want to get on it, if you're not on it, email me through the form on the website, and then I forward it and it gets on the list, because people have been getting picked up now, and we've got through quite a few actually that have been on the list. We've been getting gluts of them coming through. Because a couple of new readers have come online, I think he's got now. So translators have been half the problem. And we're trying to translate it into Chinese as well, because I've had people sit with me who've been from, I don't know where you're from actually. I said Chinese, but you're from Malaya, are you, or somewhere?
I'm in San Francisco, but I'm Chinese.
Oh, you're Chinese by birth. Okay.
Absolutely.
But we're trying to get a Chinese one up there, and we've also other languages. I know the Germans have also got one set up somewhere where you can get it in German and things like that. So yeah, but I've had people with me from South Korea, for example, that came from Naadis, and when they say about your name, they know these incredibly hard to pronounce names, for me anyway, as a Westerner, these obscure names, and it's all in the Naadi, written there, and it's written, you can actually, if you could read the Tamil, you can see the name. It's written on the leaf. So it's an amazing thing. I'm going to move on and take another couple of questions, I think.
Thank you.
Caroline Caroline Case, or Casey, isn't it, I expect. Hi there. Better unmute yourself, Caroline.
Hello, can you
Hi
hear
there.
me?
Nice to see you. Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, Craig. Always
Hi.
love listening to you on the other side of the world.
So where are
It's
you
about,
then? Australia? Is that?
yes,
Yeah.
that's right. It's
Well,
6
early in the
o'clock in the
morning for
morning
you.
here.
Yeah.
Had my coffee. Thank you very much. You may know from previous emails to you, I have been waiting for the Naadi for a few months. I sent off to Dr. Q via your website, the thumbprint and everything about 6 months ago. And from what you're saying about the timing, I'm thinking, oh, is this not my time? Is this why it's taking so long? And I guess I'm thinking about for me doing this, I very much want to improve the karma, give back to the world, do good things, all this sort of stuff. And so I'm trying to think now what I can do in the meantime. And I'm hoping my Naidi does come through eventually.
It'll
I'm not
come
one of those
through.
people
It'll
where they
come through
can't
at the
find
right
me.
time. It can, I think everybody, the problem is with it, everybody gets very impatient. You imagine the poor guys there, they've got everybody, when's mine coming through? And of course, it can take 6 months or so, I think, the process to actually get to the point finding a leaf, if you're lucky. And as if the leaf's there, of course, because a lot of them were damaged by the British when they were in there, particularly the Brahma Samhita, of which Dr. Q doesn't use, but they were pretty much destroyed by the British. But it takes time, and then once you find the leaf, because the guys have got to go out and find, because the leaves are in some of the libraries. I mean, I mentioned about the libraries in Chennai, but if they can't find it in the Chennai libraries, they have to go to other ones. And some of these leaves are just stuffed away in back rooms where people have owned the leaves and have been the custodians of them. They might only have a few bundles. So it's quite a long process to track where they are and find them. So you've got to be really patient with it, I'm afraid. It's not like a
I
reading, And
I
part of
was
the
worried
patience,
that
part of the
you,
teaching is the patience, actually. Because I remember when I went to see Sharavana, he said it was a long, long wait, and he said, I was thinking about, oh, it's a long wait, and he said to me, waiting for the guru is part of the spiritual process. He said, you gain a lot in the waiting because we learn to get the patience. You see.
I wondered if when you change your name, if that's an issue why they can't find you. But I mean, not first name, but like second name through marriage and that sort of stuff. Well, that doesn't matter.
No, don't matter. It's all on your thumbprint.
Yep,
Remarkably,
yep.
you know, I mean, you think
Well,
they only
that's
got you. In fact, when we do this, you see, when I've done mine, Nadia, I think Dr. Q, in order to speed the process up a bit, but you don't have to do it this way. But he asks you if you want, you don't have to give your name and your birth date so they can help get to it quicker. But frankly, I didn't give a name. Remember, all they did was my thumbprint, nothing except the thumbprint, nothing but that. And I think sometimes that, for me, was how I tested them. You know, because if I knew they could get not the singest glimmer or hint of who I was, then I knew I would be onto the genuine ones. And that's how I tracked down genuine Naadis, and particularly with the help of Kimpe Sol, whose books you ought to go and look up if any of you want to do some research. They're a bit pricey, but not that he charged them the price. It's just he had them all done in full color all the way through, so it makes them expensive to print. But
thank you. Thank you very much,
good.
Craig. Hopefully it'll come through, but in
Yeah,
the
don't
meantime,
panic.
I'm
It'll
trying
come
to
there
do
in time. If it's
good
meant to be, it's
karma
meant to be.
things.
And I think it's part of the spiritual process. Do a little
Right.
bit. I'm just very, very grateful that I'm able to be part of it. I mean, and all the people that have helped with it too. Fabulous it is. I'm gonna take Sue Tanner now. Thanks a lot for sharing. That was very beautiful. Some of the things you said there, Sue. Yeah, got you.
Oh, yes.
Got you.
Hello. Yes. Sorry, I just have to play with this. I have issues with my eyes. Thank you very much. I have to repeat what the previous gentleman said. You know, thank you very, very much for making this possible. I appreciate it. I heard about the Naadis from you, actually. And it was very interesting because you were saying, we were talking about how it only happens when the time is right. And this happened around probably, I think, was it early 2020 this year? End of last year. Anyway, and I was on YouTube, and actually my hand accidentally hit your that particular video, which talked about the Naadis. And so it just had to happen, I guess, because I didn't go looking for it. And so when I listened to that, it was the video with Dr. Q there, and he was explaining the whole thing, what the Naadis were and everything. And that's where I picked up on it. And I said, oh my goodness, I have to do this, you know. And so I'll bring it forward. I recently had my Naadi reading with one of the readers from Dr. Q. And that was just maybe about 3 weeks ago. So I'm just newly into it. I've just started doing my pujas. And there is also a fire ceremony recommended, which I have asked them that I will do as soon as I can. So I'm really, really looking forward to this. A little bit of background is I'm older, 67. I've been doing, you know, how shall we say, spiritual work since very young age, in my teens. And so I've been growing much more aware through my life about karma, and just because of the way things were in my family. A lot of karma, and much more intense as time went on, even though I was doing spiritual work. And it's very funny because, like you said, this thing, there will be a big shift when you do the Naadi reading. And tell you the truth, the big shift that came for me was after so many years of doing things and knowing that there was some interference in my life, that things just could not work out well. The main shift that came through with this Naadi reading was, okay, this is it. This is the last thing that I'm going to do. And after that, I am just going to be at peace with whatever comes my way and just accept.
I think what the Naadi teaches, and Naadi is a lot about karma, because you could say everything is about karma. Ultimately, everything in existence is about karma. I mean, there's different types of karma they talk about. You know, the karma from the past that's not manifest yet. There's the karma that's in our lives that is manifested at the moment, that's creating, and there's the karma that we're creating for the future as well. So every action we take, and even more importantly, every thought we have, is generating karmic energy, and every feeling we have is even more powerful, and the love we have is clearing the karma all the time. So I think it's teaching us all the time that life is all about karma, and that we should moan about nothing in life, because everything that's in our life is created by ourselves. Every single thing that's coming into our life is created by ourselves. And if we want to clear the path, I think the Naadi ultimately is telling us, first of all, to do like you say, to flow with it all, to acceptance is one of the big things. To accept that this is just the way it is. It's just the unfolding. But also we have to have a will as well. And even though will is an illusionary thing in many respects, will is also the power of love, because it's like giving and taking at the same time. So we've got to turn will into love, I suppose. And I think that's what, in a compassionate sense, into compassion, I suppose, is a better word for it in many respects. And that the more compassionately and the more loving we live, the more we completely transform everything around us. And I think the Naadi teaches us and gives us those little life belts to help us to make those changes. As I say, sometimes the words on the leaves actually disappear when we've done the right thing. And maybe it's just all about just awakening to the fact that everything just is, that it's just love. And because, there's no goal to it even. It's just there, and it's just absolute bliss and joy. And I think that is the great thing, that in this, I think, is one of the great unsung miracles of India. It's the problem. They talk about the wonders of the world. I would say this is, to me, it's the greatest wonder of the world I've come across, other than perhaps the greatness that you see sometimes manifested in the avatars and the great saints and so forth. But this is like being able to get personal contact with a very, very high being. People can't understand what it is, because they think humans can't do this sort of thing. It must be space people. And even, actually, the Naadis also talk about lives on other planets and things like that. But it's something that transcends the normal human condition, but it's in the human world. I don't think it's from some other planet or something. But it makes you think, was Shiva a spaceman? People have often asked. So
that's true. I think so, because I never speak about this to people. My family knows. I feel that people have to really, you know when someone's going to be receptive, and so I generally don't speak about it, because it is a kind of a very otherworldly kind of thing, But I really appreciate that. I'm here basically to clear my karmas, and I'm
that's a
really
good
looking
approach to
forward.
take to it. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Take that approach.
Because I know, like, in that sense, that we are here just to be love, and to just be, and to awaken. And yet I find that there's all these interferences that just don't let that layer kind of shine through. So anyway, that's my
Okay. Well,
journey. That's my trip. Thank you very much
thank you
again.
very much for
Truly
sharing.
appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing with us. Okay, now any last questions? Because I'll take our last one now. Still got a hand up.
Uh,
Suki, I'm gonna bring. I'll get you in the next.
it's a quick.
Okay. Yep.
I have same problem like Lad. I have inheritance money. They're not paying it to me. I don't know if I can do something to get my money.
Well, there are remedies in there to help you with that. There are different Naadis you can approach specifically for things like that. But again, one would have to perhaps find another Naadi source sometimes. So you could reapply and ask again to Dr. Q if it hasn't given you a remedy for that. Because you haven't had your Naadi yet, did you? I can't remember.
No, not yet. I just
it will probably have something in there. And there are other ones where you can specifically ask to do something where you can ask the Naadi 5 questions. It's not strictly the Naadi in the same way. It's a different type of system, but it's linked in with it. Yeah. So there's things like that. But again, I always think that, thoughts are things, thoughts are powers. And also in the age of Kali Yuga, mantras are very powerful, because in the age of Kali Yuga, they say you can enter higher states of consciousness just through mantras. I would suggest you consider a mantra like Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya on a Monday when it's Shiva's day. Could help you generate the energy and have a visualization. Meanwhile, while you're waiting for your Naadi to come to fruition. But I'm sure it'll be in there, and it'll be at the right time. It'll be at the right time. Okay, and the last one I'm going to take the hand up I see with Suki just finally again.
It's me again.
Yeah.
Just a quick one. The Brigu Samhita, Naadis, it's so interesting. First time I've ever heard of it. Did you say it was in a place called Hoshiarpur?
Yes, if I pronounced it right, yes.
India by any chance?
It's in India, in the north of India, up on the foothills of the Himalayas, that one
That
is.
was funny. It rang a bell because that's where my family are from.
Oh, really? Well, you could go again. One's got to be a bit careful. That I believe the Brighu Samhita was split up. It's in the Punjab, says
Yeah,
Sheila in the
yeah.
God. But it
Right
was
next to the village where my ancestors are from.
okie doke. Well, it might be worth going there and finding out. It'd be an interesting journey, wouldn't it? An interesting spiritual journey. Again, with all of them, you've got to be careful. Like with all of them, like I've said, I feel that with the one we found here, it's safe. I feel I wouldn't recommend it because for years people used to ask me about Naadi. In the books, I said I do not recommend any Naadis because there's too many corrupt, and I don't want to misguide anybody. There's been Naadis where I've known that are very good, and they suddenly Western money got involved, and they went the other direction and became a corrupt Naadi and doing nobody any good whatsoever. Others that can confuse people because it's so difficult to interpret, and it's the big cultural differences between able to do it. And so again with the Brighu Samhita, the one I don't know the one now because it's gone, because it was Kim Pasol that used to help me to find that one. But it gave me some quite remarkable stuff. But also there was some stuff in some of them that were not quite on. Some of them things that he said that weren't quite right. So I think with all of them, it's like there's different, like I said, there's different levels. And I think also with Naadi, sometimes the energy shifts and changes and moves. Like a good Naadi can become corrupt, like good food can become, can go off, and sometimes. So it's got to be constantly refreshed and constantly looked after, and it's got to be handled correct. And but yeah, you might be lucky and find that one there. It would be, if you can find the right one. I think there was a BBC documentary of somebody that went and found the Brighu Samhita done in the 70s that's out there on YouTube that might be worth a look up. Because I remember he found he found his name listed on the index there.
A quick one. You were personally mentioned in my second Naadi.
Oh, really?
I know that's people go say, oh, because they know you, but it wasn't like that. They mentioned quite a few other gurus like Sharavana Baba. They wouldn't really know of him. Why would I be connected to him? And then they said there's somebody you follow in England who's not Indian, and he's, the way they pronounced your name. I was like, yeah, that's crazy.
Oh, wow. Yeah, a few people have said that, actually. It's odd. I don't consider myself as being some great guru or anything, but it's an honor to be in there, definitely. Perhaps I've deceived these Rishis somewhere along the line.
Well, I feel like it's Dr. Q said, we're kind of sending a message from the past to ourselves. So
we are
floating around somewhere there as well.
Yeah, I think there's messages. I feel we kind of wrote them ourselves sometimes, don't we? I think. I wonder, it's a bit like the story of Wu Chen En and the story of the monkey, and then they go on the quest with. It's a Chinese story, and they go off seeking enlightenment, and they go through, steals the apples from heaven and does all these things, and he becomes a miraculous monkey. It's a bit like the Ramayana story, and eventually gets to the Buddha, and they put him into the room to see the enlightened being, and it's a mirror, and of course that's what I think it is for us ultimately. We're a mirror to ourselves, aren't we? Ultimately, and I think we exist and we don't exist. We're God, but we're nothing at the same time. What is this? What, like Ramana Maharishi said, always ask yourself the question, who am I? Because what is it? Who is it having this experience? Who is it? And who is it having the experience after death as well? It's fascinating.
It is the soul.
Yeah, well, is there a soul?
The soul project our being. If you understand the atoms and stuff, it's the soul. We are living illusion.
Or is the soul, what is the consciousness inside the soul, you see? Again, this question of, is a dualistic or non-dualistic world? I mean, that would be that's a huge one. I think a good one to sort of keep us going here all night. I see a couple more hands up because I'm all right with time myself, if you guys are. Sheila, I see you've got your hand up again. You've got to comment.
I just wanted to quickly ask. First of all, I want to clarify. I was saying Dr. M throughout.
I
It's
know
actually
you.
Dr. Q. My apologies. I think his first name begins with M. That's why. So I just wanted to clarify it was the same person. I just want to ask those people who've done the pujas, including yourself, Craig, do you have to be vegetarian on those days? Because I've been asked to do pujas on Tuesday to Hanuman and Saturday, I think to the goddess Durga. I haven't started them yet because I'm going to ask my father to look for an auspicious date.
Hmm.
This week is actually very auspicious because of Diwali, which is,
Yeah.
commencing, so to speak. I may not be able to do it this week. So I just wanted to ask that does that impact? Because in India, typically, when you do a puja, in my language, which is Bengali, we say niramish, which means you're vegetarian. Some people also say, no, if you've done the puja in the evening, you can eat. It's just Saturday night in England means I go out sometimes.
I
And
can't answer that because I'm not a vegetarian. So I don't,
yeah,
and but I have when I'm in India, I made vegetarian because it's safer, and it's lovely, and the food is perfectly geared up for people with a palate like mine. I think sometimes. I actually I can't be vegetarian because I have to, well, anyway, medically. But I don't know, Sheila, to answer that one. They usually say, don't they, with the pujas and things like that, is to be in as pure a state as you can. When a guru comes to visit your house, you must always be vegetarian. You must empty all the meat out the fridges and things like that, you know. So I
yeah,
suppose it's a bit like the same as if if a guru's approaching you, you take that sort of attitude of reverence. You know, if Sai Baba came to your home, or Rama came to your home, or Krishna came to your home, or whatever, you would clear out all those things just in case.
yeah,
So I can't think it'd do any harm. I don't think if it's up to you. I mean, you know, in fact, my Naadi has not said to me. Sometimes it's said to me. Originally, it said you should become a vegetarian because I, in
mm,
past lives, had connections with Swam, oh, what's his name? I've forgotten the name of the guru. Had been with him for a while, so who was all into vegetarianism. I forgot. God, my brain's gone. Perhaps I'm not supposed to say it, but then in later nights it says, well, you know, to eat fruit and meat. Then it's a bit compromised on me, you know. So
just wondered what the other people who have had their nadi and have been asked to do pujas, were you vegetarian? Yes, Suki, maybe. Were you?
No, Sheila, I did think about this as well because I do believe in Hinduism and I've done other pujas elsewhere where they have asked me to be vegetarian and I did fulfill that. But when it came to the Nadi pujas, I felt so like I was so authentic and it didn't matter
Mm,
if you were, if you weren't, if you had
mm,
have alcohol. I felt like all the rituals had gone out the window and it was just me and my puja. And whatever items you want to offer, you can offer your favorite crystals, you can offer your favorite rose scent, you can over like I offered one of my favorite perfumes because it was personal to me. And then straight after, funny enough, my husband and me were in sync with our pujas. It was weird. He had a different offering. So I kind of followed those guidelines of God sees, or the higher beings, or whatever you believe in, sees everything you do anyway.
yeah,
So I felt
yeah.
if I'm going
I
to be
do. I
vegetarian,
remember I saw a priest. I took one of the things I had to give on one of the things was to give sweets, and I gave chocolates, and he said you can't give these chocolates because they've got animal fat in them.
oh, right,
So
yeah.
you can get told off as well. I'm going to just finish it soon, but I'm going to let one that hasn't spoken yet, Innerborg, if how would you pronounce it? A Danish name or something there?
Yeah, I'm Dutch. I'm
Dutch
Dutch,
name.
Craig.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Dutch, but it's a
I,
Danish name. That's true. Yeah, Swedish, whatever. Yeah. Mm-mm. No, thank you. Well, Greg, I really appreciate this Zoom because it gives me a deeper and a more deeper insight into the Nadi because I had it last year March and I wrote it all. So
uh-huh.
it's almost a Bible to me. So I look what will be happening these 2 years, you know? But
Yeah, I've done that actually. I've got my Google Calendar set up with all the important dates set up, and every now and again one pops up. This is going to be a turning point for your daughter, or this is going to be
yeah.
so on. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But I have one and it says nighttime driving, avoid driving car. Well, you should know how much many kilometers I drive in my car. So then I'm already worrying that I should avoid the car. But I did all the pujas and the fire ceremonies, which was beautiful. You got the video, and I really really loved it. So I'm kind of curious what I solved, so that I should not worry about what is written down and should get a bit more relaxed.
Yeah, well, if it says not to avoid something, I still would do that. But I think you've probably cleared any potential dangers in your life on most of the things. I think because, like I say, it can't get rid of the karma. It's like a curse. Once it's been given, it's there almost. But you can water it down so it don't do any harm. The Buddhists often think about this when it comes to healing. They say you can't take away the healing, but you can water it down so it's like you hardly even notice it. So whatever suggestions and warning that's given to you, well, I would follow them, but I wouldn't be living in fear because you've been doing the pujas, so the pujas clear it. So it said in mine things like car accidents and things like that were in mine. And driving through India, or being driven through India in Tamil Nadu, we did about 2,000 miles when I was there, I think, at the time, because we drove up and down India all the way. I thought, I hope no, and we didn't have a car accident. So I thought, if ever going to happen, it's going to happen here, because if you've ever seen them driving there, it's nightmarish. And so I think don't live in fear, because that's the whole idea of it, really. It's to clear it, isn't it? It's to clear it. And I think, although it tells you to do this puja and that puja and do this and that, and for me, it's always been a lot of feeding, because I've always felt feeding people has been important to me, I feel. And I think, and it said to me, you don't need to do any more pujas now. You've done everything you need to do. But then I think, well, but then I still want to do them. I still want to feed people. I still want to give people cows. And it says it doesn't make any difference whether you do it or don't. But I think, well, you do it because that's what we do. And I think with everything in life, and perhaps if we do that, then we don't generate negative karma for the future, and we help open the door to becoming a fully enlightened being, and being at one with the universe, etc. And really using that divine force in our life, and understanding it is all love and so forth, like we talked about. Okay, well, I think I'm going to finish there now, unless there's any last final question that nobody was trying desperate to say and hasn't had a chance now. I think everybody's had your chances now, haven't you, there? So there we go, all about the Naadi. I think I'll do another one on this, because it's such a big title, and it's so interesting, isn't it? And I'll be setting some more workshops up. The website's got a few little quirks in it at the moment, so I'll set some more up, but take a look on there, and you'll be able to see new ones coming up all the time. I'm going to keep putting these, not just Naadis, but we'll be doing the group reading ones, and we'll do other ones. And you're always welcome, always, almost, if you're a patron or anything, always prompt me of things you'd like me to do and teach as well, because I like doing these as webinars as much as doing the readings ones. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to say bye to you all. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
So you got in, Patrice, too. Thanks, everybody. See you soon. So do you like what I have to say? And do you like my work? Well, why don't you support my work? Have a look in the description below to go to my website, find out about psychic readings, find out about our Naadi readings with the Indian Naadi Oracle, buy my books, and join my workshops online by Zoom. All there on the website psychics.co.uk.